a Marvel fan means you have to expect the unexpected, and yet Marvel always seems to throw a curveball. Tony Stark was adopted! Surprise! Starting off with a bang. This shocking news was revealed in 2012's Iron Man 17. We also learned that Tony had a brother, as if he didn't have enough on his plate already. Tony and his relationship with his dad has never been stellar, but the news that he was adopted made the genius reevaluate everything he ever knew. Tony's brother is Arno. When Maria Stark was pregnant, Arno wasn't doing well, so the Starks did the normal thing here and accepted help from Alien 451. The help in question: get Arno to term, but in exchange he would genetically modify the baby to be able to one day wield the most powerful armor in the universe. Either way, the Stark boys ended up wielding powerful suits of armor. Howard Stark made his own modifications to Arno while he was in the womb, and those actually made his health decline. Alien 451 could not know that happened, so the Starks adopted Tony as a cover. That is so sad. Tony deserved a loving family, not being a cover-up story for an alien. Arno was kept away, and Tony was eventually brought up in the spotlight. Eventually Tony and the alien met up, and Tony was in this powerful suit, but it obviously didn't work. Tony had to investigate why. He's Tony Stark, and that's why he found out about his brother. Coming to terms with an island being a sentient mutant is already a big ask, but having said sentient mutant island get a girlfriend, it's borderline too much. Strap in everybody, this is about to get wild. So Krakoa, the now safe haven for mutants, got a girlfriend, Arakko, also a sentient island. Here's the thing though, Krakoa and Arakko used to be one human-shaped mutant called Akara. Akara eventually grew to the size of a massive island and then was split in half by the Twilight Sword. When that happened, a portal opened to Amenth, a place full of demons and bad things. One half of the island went there, Arakko, and the other half of the island stayed on Earth, Krakoa. They were separated for a long time. Then Summoner was coming to Earth for a mission, but needed a piece of his realm as a transport, so he took part of the Arakko island, called it the Arak Coral. It was the Arak Coral that presumably mated with Krakoa. The entire island of Arakko stayed separate from Krakoa in the end. It was just the small piece that got involved. The most unexpected love story I have ever read. Wolverine being at point zero for the bombing of Hiroshima still shocks me. At this point, Wolverine is more important in the history of the human race than any major world leader. If you look at the background of any major event in recent history, Wolverine probably has something to do with it. What do you mean he was at the bombing of Hiroshima, and what do you mean he survived? Healing factor goes crazy. How did Wolverine end up at the location of the drop? Well, it was World War II, and Wolverine was captured by some Japanese soldiers and sent to jail. He escapes jail with this guy, Ethan Warren. He is a problem, we will cover that in a second. Wolverine gets romantically involved with a local girl after escaping, and he experiences peace for a short while, until Warren shows up and wrecks everything. He ends Wolverine's girlfriend, and Wolverine starts to fight him. It's a pretty intense fight that would need something pretty serious to stop it. Imagine my shock and surprise when that something was the bomb. Obviously, the city is destroyed, the fight is over, and the comic ends with Wolverine emerging from the wreckage, looking surprisingly not the worst he's looked, but it's in the top 5. Captain America joining the Avengers after being trapped in the ice feels like such an important part of the character's story. It's hard to believe that it was once a surprise. The character went into the ice in 1945 and was revived in 1964, but the comics featuring the captain continued to be published in the 1950s, so what's going on? This was explained away in 1977 by another person taking over the Captain America mantle to keep the spirit of America alive. That person was William Nasland. All the Captain America stuff that happened when Steve was in the ice still happened, it was just this different guy, so Marvel successfully explained why they could bring Steve back in 1964's Avengers 4, and it would all still make sense in the timeline. According to the Avengers 4 comic, Steve Rogers was brought back because of fan mail. An avalanche of it demanded he return, so thank you to those fans. Marvel would not be Marvel without Steve Rogers. Peter Parker's parents being out of the picture is very central to his character, but one time they returned, and if that wasn't surprising enough, it was revealed that they weren't actually his parents, they were robot versions of his parents. It was the 90s, and that's all the explanation I will give. Moving on, I'm kidding. So, Amazing Spider-Man issue 365, Peter's parents. They are back in business. Welcome back, Richard and Mary Parker. No warning, no call to say they are dropping in, they just show up after resting peacefully for decades worth of comics. Turns out though, they weren't really Peter's parents, but robot versions of them. That was revealed revealed 2 years after the parents were reintroduced, so Marvel kept this up for a while. The robots were sent by a villain named Chameleon because he wanted to figure out who Spider-Man was, and he figured that since Peter Parker gets all the best pictures of the web-slinger, he must know him personally. He was right. A wild plan, but at least he was right. The parents' robots had all the memories from the real Parkers and could simulate humans' emotions, and that programming led to Chameleon's downfall. He did too good of a job because Robot Mary actually started feeling motherly affection towards Peter and ended up protecting him and his identity in the end. Remember that time that Jean Grey died but actually didn't die and was really preserved at the bottom of the ocean by the Phoenix Force? Wasn't that wild? Now this is just part of the history, part of the Marvel lore, but put yourself in the shoes of a reader from this time. This was big news. Jean Grey had sacrificed herself to stop the Dark Phoenix from returning. It was big, it was emotional, she literally passed away. She was going to stay 6 feet under, but then Marvel wanted her back to join a team of X-Men because they needed a girl on the team. Originally, that girl was going to be Dazzler, but that fell through and they wanted Grey instead. So now, instead of being 6 feet under, Grey was actually about 50 feet under the water in Jamaica Bay, kept perfectly safe from harm for all these years by the Phoenix Force so that it could have a proper host. Surprise! Then it was a surprise squared because Madeline Pryor also existed, and she was a clone of Jean involved with Cyclops. Then when the real Jean showed up, Cyclops left her and that made him look really bad. It's hard to picture the Marvel Universe without Jean Grey, but this comeback did rock the boat in the 1980s. Franklin Richards not being a mutant anymore? What was that for? Just to make us suffer? Franklin is the son of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman, and for a very long time he was a mutant. Not just any mutant, he was thought to be one of the most powerful mutants in the Marvel Universe. That's a big deal, and it's been that way since the kid was a toddler and saving the world. Everybody wanted Franklin on their side. I cannot blame them. The X-Men wanted Franklin on Krakoa. It makes sense. He was an incredibly powerful mutant, and they believed he should be around other people like him. Only his parents disagreed. They believed that since he was a child, he should be home with his family. I see both sides here, but the X-Men and the Fantastic Four got into a pretty big fight over it in Washington Square Park. People's cars were smashed, insurance was called. In this fight, we find out that Mr. Fantastic muted his son's mutanthood so that he couldn't cross into Krakoa, which permanently damaged that relationship. Then, when Franklin did end up on Krakoa after a number of fights with his parents, he made a bunch of friends and kind of started making a life for himself there. But surprise, LOL, it was for nothing. All those relationships and family drama and smashed parks for nothing. It was explained away by Franklin having powers so powerful that he was unconsciously making it appear he was a mutant, but when he lost his powers, he couldn't do that anymore and the truth was revealed he wasn't. Imagine that being your teen years. It's a good thing the Fantastics are rich because they are going to need an amazing therapist to help Franklin with all this. Spider-Man and Mary Jane's forceful divorce was so out of left field, it still rocks me to my core. So, in Spider-Man One More Day, Aunt May is really sick, bedridden, and the possibility of a funeral in the near future is high, so Peter is desperate to help her get better. Peter being unwilling to let go of the woman who took him in and raised him is not that surprising. That's a very normal feeling. It's the way Aunt May was saved. Instead of having a really interesting arc about Peter learning to deal with the grief of losing this important family member, Marvel went with the choice that Mephisto, who is not the devil, but that's the vibe, that Mephisto would save Aunt May in exchange for Peter and MJ's marriage. Bonkers choice. Turns out that there was probably an actual reason for doing this. It wasn't as random as it first appeared. Mephisto had a vision that Spider-Man's daughter was going to take him down in the future, so he figured that if he broke up Peter and MJ's marriage, the daughter would never be born and he would be fine. Good logic. Didn't work though. Another reason why this choice was made, to let writers explore Peter's character without having MJ there. The two have been together for a while, so doing this let the writers explore different stories that they might not have been able to if they were still married. Wanda and Pietro not being mutants and not being Magneto's kids. This topic has been brought up so many times on this channel, I almost want to do an official count, but literally, can you blame us? What was Marvel thinking? This is the kind of thing that you block someone for. For years, decades, Wanda and Pietro have been mutants and the twins of Magneto. Then one day, Uncanny Avengers Volume 2 drops and the Marvel Universe has never been the same. Wanda and Pietro are not mutants all of a sudden, and instead were twins stolen from the Maximoffs to be experimented on by the High Evolutionary, and that is why they have superpowers. That brings in the other big sore spot. If they were stolen twins from the Maximoff, then they aren't Magneto's kids. Marvel just broke up a family that has been around forever. Luckily, they did acknowledge the years of history by showing that even if Magneto isn't their biological dad, he will always be a father figure to them, so thank you for kissing that paper cut, Marvel. Still, it creates some plot holes, like we know Magneto has twins because they were born, we saw it, so where are they? Magneto is one of the most powerful mutants out there, so his kids would probably be pretty powerful too. Are we to believe that they haven't been out wreaking havoc somewhere? Also, Magneto found one of his other kids when she used her magnetism powers and he sensed it, so were the actual twins born powerless? Is Marvel keeping this purposely in the dark so they can retcon this retcon? I wish I knew. This single panel of Captain America rocked the internet in a way I have not seen in all of my years. The only reason this point beat out the Wanda and Pietro not mutants point was because I feel like it didn't just mean something to only Marvel fans, but also just like the general public. Everybody was talking about this, Twitter was having a meltdown. The America-loving king that Chris Evans brought to the screen suddenly saying, "Hail Hydra?" Worlds were changed, breakdowns were had. Now we know that it wasn't actually Steve Rogers' Captain America, but a different Captain America raised in a different timeline, Flag Smasher. So we don't need to worry anymore, but when this dropped, I remember where I was. No one saw it coming because it completely goes against everything Captain America. It was truly the most out of character and out of pocket thing Cap could have said. Why in a million years would fans expect this? Bad stuff did still happen in the Hail Hydra universe. Spoiler alert, death of Agent Coulson was a hit to the heart, Deadpool getting roped in because of his blind alliance to the Captain, messy, messy, messy. Eventually, the actual Captain comes back and takes care of business, thank goodness. Thanks so much for watching, don't forget to like, subscribe, and make your mark on the comments section down below. I expect to see comments about the Marvel moments that rocked your world. This is Juliana, signing off. Bye!